You've heard Rome was civilized. What if its most advanced systems ran on horror? This countdown maps 10 processes, state-funded, carefully staged, and wildly popular, that turned cruelty into policy and spectacle into power. We'll follow how rulers used public shows, market floors, and midday rituals to steer votes, silence rivals, and train a crowd to cheer the unthinkable. By the end, you'll see why the empire didn't just allow brutality, it needed it. Stay to learn how each mechanism locked into the next, like gears in a machine that couldn't stop without breaking. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Number 1. Gladiator death games in the Colosseum. Campaign money sounded like steel on shields. Editors, politicians footing the bill, bought roars the way others bought posters. The amphitheater worked as a ballot box with dust and drums. The bouts looked wild, but a ledger set the pace. Pairings matched styles for drama, weapons were issued like props, and timekeepers nudged suspense so the crest of cheers aligned with the sponsor's wave. Whoever pulled that lever shaped careers and headlines. Munera started as funeral duty, then swelled into public largesse. Seats mapped status in rings. Referees signaled pauses, crews swapped scenes, and programs cued duels before the noon switch. Inscriptions bragged about pairs, while staged mercy or ruthless finishes sent policy hints from the box. So gladiators spoke without speaking. The arena swung opinion under thunder. It taught Rome to read power as spectacle and demand more. Number 2. Crucifixions as public entertainment. The slow death spoke louder than a shout. Bodies on timber stood where roads met the city, catching eyes all day, sending a message that carried to the forum like a drumbeat. This was legal theater. Officials chose places with traffic, not shade, and timed displays so crowds moved past while watchmen and clerks took note. The aim was delay, spectacle, and order. Law put non-citizens, rebels, and the unruly within reach. Processions marched the condemned through streets, then fixed them near gates and milestones. On festival days, the audience swelled, and the lesson landed. Midday slots from Ludi Meridiani kept the rhythm with other penalties. After uprisings, governors scaled it up as warning. Burial was refused, so the sign stayed after breath ended. By turning suffering into a billboard, dissent shrank to a rumor. Next came the market where bodies took price. Number 3. Slave markets and human auctions. A city of marble ran on a market of people. Auctions turned conquest into payroll, and the stalls sat in plain sight, as central as a fountain. This market was core infrastructure. Sellers penned groups, marched lots onto platforms, and showed tituli tags that listed origin, skills, and defects. Brokers called prices, clerks tracked bids, and a tax took its cut. When armies won, bodies flowed. Supply swelled, prices softened, and households grew. Credit greased the trade. Buyers financed purchases, leased workers, and tallied lives like tools on a slate. Urban labor stacked with enslaved staff in kitchens, fields, and schools. Manumission dangled as an incentive loop, turning loyalty into a future stake, then often looping freed people back as clients. The payoff was silent but vast. This engine-staffed spectacles fed logistics and kept handlers on payroll. When families couldn't keep children, the system had a slot for that too. Number 4. Infanticide and abandoned babies. Exposure looked like a private grief, but it ran like a supply line. Newborns were set out at dumps or doorways, and neighbors read it as custom, not crisis. The father's legal power, patria potestas, framed the choice as household policy. Collectors learned the roots. They watched known spots, lifted the living, and raised them for profit. Some children became domestic staff. Others were steered to brothels or trained as dwarfs, acrobats, or attendants. It worked like a sideshow pipeline. Quiet, steady, and cheap. Texts described the practice as accepted. Law did not forbid it, and money pressures pushed it along. Dowry costs loomed. Food had to stretch. A child could mean debt. Foundlings filled the slave economy without a war, smoothing supply in cities and estates. The state didn't need orders. Custom and gain kept the stream moving, and elites favored quieter knives. Number 5. Poisonings and political assassinations. In a city that cheered public deaths, the elite prized silence. Private endings kept crowds calm while the winners rearranged the board. Poison and hired blades worked like edits in a ledger. A rival vanished, an estate opened, an alliance reset without a broken statue. Banquets carried risk by design. Hosts used testers and tasters, while guests watched cups the way gamblers watch dice. Law made the math tempting. Inheritance rules turned sudden deaths into assets, so suspicion did half the work. Rumor became policy control inside imperial rooms. A whisper of poison could pin a senator to his seat and smooth a vote. Paperwork wrapped the blade. Lists and trials gave murder a seal and a clerk. Fear did the work of 1,000 guards. Quiet removal kept the gears aligned. Daylight still had its stage, where beasts met people on cue. Number 6. Blood sports with wild animals. Noon belonged to the beasts. The crowd learned empire from claws and teeth, as strangers met lions under a white sun. Animals were not random. Bestiari trained hunger like a script, set cues and managed entries so each scene hit on time. The arena became a map of reach, with exotics framed as trophies and threats in one breath. Handlers used harsh conditioning to keep order and thrill spectators. Some taught arena-born animals to seek human flesh, and even coached the condemned on quicker deaths. So the show stayed tight, and the fear stayed high. Venaciones worked like harvests of foreign nature, staged as lessons and as sport. Star performers rose when a gesture seemed to command the kill. Midday folded in executions by beasts as a clear lesson. The payoff was blunt, wonder mixed with warning. And when the seats emptied, prisons kept the lesson alive. Number 7. Torture of prisoners and rebels. Interrogation had a stage twin. Confession by pain-fed courts and crowds, as if the docket sat beside a small circus ring. Torture worked 3 ways: fact-finding, punishment, and a public lesson. Officials aimed it at non-citizens and slaves, which showed how status set the rules. The legal view treated pain as a path to truth, even when agony bent words into lies. Devices ranged from restraints to heat and strain, used in hearings where clerks recorded each cry like evidence. Rebellions drew scale. After unrest, mass punishments broke bodies to warn the living, so rumor carried the verdict farther than any posted notice. Paid roles grew around this craft. Informers, torturers, and executioners. Some crossed into shows, demonstrating methods as a sideline. Pain was policy. By putting nerves on the record, officials kept order on the cheap. The elite dined while it worked. Number 8. Decadent feasts ending in vomitoriums. The word is wrong, but the system is right. Feasting worked like a control panel for status, where a chair's distance from the host set your rank and your future. Vomitorium earned its place in theaters as a crowd exit, not a lunchroom. But induced vomiting did occur. Hosts pushed excess with emetics, long course lists, and rare tastes brought from far provinces, turning surplus into a stage. Service flowed like an assembly line. Performers filled gaps between courses, while platters mapped supply lines: grain, fish, fruit, proof that the network obeyed one house. A seat near the couch meant favors, jobs, and votes. Food doles outside the hall and quiet patronage inside bound clients to a name. Gluttony functioned like a demo. One night proved the empire could move oceans for applause. Outside the dining room, the city's drains told a different story. Number 9. Plagues and filthy living conditions. Grand baths and aqueducts hid a grind of rot. Density paid the city's bills, but it also bred disease that moved faster than any decree. Insulae stacked high with cheap timber and mud brick. Fires spread, floors failed, and privies leaked through walls, seeding illness room to room. Waste crews lagged behind demand, so alleys and drains stayed foul. Trade and war kept the churn. Army roads and ships carried more than goods. They carried contagion back to ports and barracks. Outbreaks hit hardest in cramped blocks. Labor patterns shifted as the poor died first, and temples filled with new vows. Neighbors searched for causes and found scapegoats. Crowds still gathered, because wages, rations, and habit required presence. The economy of bodies stayed lit. Public health bent to public order. The show went on, and the city paid in bodies. Beyond the walls, scale only grew. Number 10. The destruction of entire civilizations for empire expansion. Every beast and dish had a map behind it, won by siege, tribute, and erasure. Expansion fed a logistics chain, not a whim. It gathered bodies, grain, metals, and trophies, then routed them home. The path ran like a conveyor. Captives went to auctions. Resources moved to ports. Exotic fauna traveled in crates. Art crossed roads to triumphs. Processions taught crowds to treat conquest as civic joy, a parade that turned loss elsewhere into comfort here. Policy set careers to extraction. Governors rose by how much they shipped, while settlements replaced local systems with a new grid of taxes, roads, and rules. Victories were staged again as shows, so the story held together and the winners kept the microphone. The payoff is plain. Empire ran as a supply engine for horror and luxury. Erased cultures became everyday Roman life. Civilization isn't kind by default. It's designed. Ask what our own systems reward. Who profits, who pays, and what gets hidden under applause. The pattern still reads the same. Follow the incentives, and the gears show where the mercy actually ends.